Alright guys, it's Westy here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a brand new series on my channel. It's going to be called Loadouts, which is basically where I'm going to be reviewing some weapon setups that you guys can send in to me. I'm going to be reviewing guns in certain situations, different maps, different game modes, all that kind of thing, and I'll be giving you all the details for each weapon, how you should really use it, and how it would benefit you in that situation. The idea behind the new series is to kind of try and change things up a little bit. We've got past the Aftermath hype, but we're not quite close enough to Endgame to start talking about it too much yet. So it's kind of me trying to fill a gap in the Battlefield sort of timeline, and maybe use some weapons that I've not used before. So as I said, if you've got any specific weapon setups that you'd like me to try, don't forget to leave a comment below, and you can always upvote ones that you think would be good for me to try as well. Right, let's crack on. So the first weapon setup we're going to be using today is going to be using the M5K, which is personally one of my favourite PDW weapons. We're going to be using this weapon on the close quarters maps, as the M5K has some real good benefits when you're using it in close quarters combat. The setup we're going to be using is with the Cobra sight, the laser sight and the extended mags. With a rate of fire of 900 rounds per minute, now that's extremely high, the M5K is up there at the top of the RPM range. Being as how the rate of fire is so high, this is our first indication as to why we should keep this as a close quarters weapon. Secondly, we need to look at the recoil. Now, upwards recoil is 0.25 and side to side recoil is 0.48. And the last reason why we need to keep it as a close quarters weapon is of course the mag size, which is only 21 bullets per clip. Okay, so let's start with the high RPM. Any weapon that's going to have a high RPM is going to empty your mag a hell of a lot quicker than something that's, let's say, got 750 RPM. However, in close quarters, the higher your RPM, the faster you're going to kill your enemy. So this high RPM actually ties in well with our extended mag attachment, which means that we can spray fire at close range and usually get the kill quite quickly. With a damage of 25 inside 10 meters, the M5K does pretty well at close range, but then that drops to 13.5 at 50 meters. You can start to see why I've chosen this as a close quarters weapon, because the damage at long range is extremely bad. Plus, with that high rate of fire, you're going to find it extremely difficult to kill targets at long range. The recoil comes into it too. You have an upwards recoil of 0.25 and side to side recoil of 0.48. Now the side to side recoil doesn't matter too much because there's an inbuilt foregrip on the M5K in this game which handles that pretty well. That upwards recoil of 0.25 is going to really hinder you when you're trying to fire at long range targets. Let's say you're trying to fire at someone across the map, then you're going to find it extremely difficult to hit them with that recoil. Plus, when firing at long range targets, you need to factor in the first shot recoil multiplier, which for the M5K is 1.55. So you're really looking at a weapon that's going to really kick when you first start firing. So if the person's not directly in front of you, you're going to miss those first few crucial shots. Now, when you factor in a laser sight to this setup, this kind of helps the long range combat just a little bit. You know what the laser sight does, it sort of decreases the size of your crosshairs on the screen, and obviously that can help for accuracy at longer ranges when hip firing. Now, as we're using this weapon on close quarters maps, you are going to be doing a lot of hip firing. I recommend for any weapon that you're using in close quarters combat that you should equip a laser sight with it. The reason being is if an enemy is only just around the corner and you walk around and they start firing at you, you're instantly going to be able to combat them because the laser sight will help you guide them back onto the target rather than using your actual sight. So now we know that the laser sight helps with long range accuracy, and really the Cobra sight that I've equipped on the M5K is really just personal preference. You could use the holographic sight or you could use an RDS, but I would say that if you're going to use a sight on a weapon like this, which I advise anyway, that you should probably use like a holographic or an RDS, because if you put anything like a magnification on it, it can give you a different sense of where you're actually aiming on the screen. So let's say you put an ACOG on the M5K, you sort of lose sense of where you're actually standing, and because you're in close quarters the map's quite small anyway, so you're not really going to need that high powered scope. So that's really my explanation as to why I'm using this gun. The reason I actually started properly using it is because when close quarters came out, it was one of the first things I unlocked, and I found that it was probably one of the best PDWs to date, and it still is. The high rate of fire is really satisfying in close quarters. You can even use it on rush maps where you're in and around the MCOMs. It's really good for clearing out enemies really quickly. Okay, so I'm quickly just going to talk about the other things in the setup, and that's mainly sort of the secondary weapon and what I'm going to have as my equipment. Now, as you may have already seen on the screen, I'm actually using the M1911 handgun as my secondary. I've become very fond of this gun ever since I got veteran status. I played 1942 on the PC just for a little bit to get the veteran status, and I found that the handgun is extremely powerful. It's kind of a halfway between a Rex and an MP433, where the Rex is very powerful but doesn't have a lot of ammo, and the MP433 has a lot of ammo but isn't particularly powerful. And the main reason I use it really, let's say, versus the MP433 or the M9, is because it just sounds better. The rate of fire is a little bit slower, but I really do prefer the crunch it sort of puts into players with the 9 bullets. I mean, you can still spam it just a little bit if you need to, but it's always got the power behind it to finish off an enemy. And finally, let's just talk about equipment. For the game mode that I was playing that you're actually watching, I had the Expo equipped. You could really use a med kit, to be honest, because then you could run around and heal other players while you're running around, get yourself some extra points. But I used it really, there's not a lot of footage in there, but I used the explosive bolt to sort of scare enemies out of rooms and stuff. And then once they've sort of moved out, you go in with your M5K and sort of spray them down. But really, if I had the choice, I'd probably put the med kit back on there, because it gets you a hell of a lot more points than what the Expo can. Alright then, that about wraps up this first episode of my new series Loadout. Like I've said, if you've got any specific loadouts that you want me to try, make sure you leave a comment below. And if there are any in the comments that you actually like the look of and you'd like me to try, don't forget to upvote them. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, don't forget to give it a like. It always helps me out so that I know which things to carry on my channel. And have a nice day. I'll see you in the next video.